Tres, dos, uno. Bienvenidos. Welcome to the Brown Perspective. I'm here with my partner in crime, Eduardo.
What's going on? What's going on? What's going on?
What's going on? Are you still sane or are you going crazy from staying in your house?
Yeah, it's getting to me. I think it's a little surreal because everything is normal at the house. Obviously, days are a little busy with work, but then you don't see any of the chaos that's going on elsewhere. Like I haven't because I've been working. I haven't had a chance to go to the stores and things like that, so I haven't seen for myself um, the how how things are. But yeah, but obviously we keep getting information about the increasing number of cases here in LA County and other hotspots. So that's also worrisome. But other than that, trying to stay centered with everything that's going on.
You're not doing grocery shopping?
No, so because I've been working, unfortunately, I haven't had a chance to go and enjoy my wife for that. And
Okay.
I'm not being like a stereotypical sexist guy. It's just I haven't had the opportunity to go, but we do have groceries and we have gone shopping. I just haven't been able to go with her. So I do help bring them in and put them away, and I've been cooking too. So
Hey,
making
you
sure
don't
that
have to
people know
justify
that I'm
yourself.
a
Hey,
90s sensitive kind of guy.
you don't have to justify yourself, man. That's your insecurity. That's your insecurity kicking in. You're trying to overcompensate.
Not at all,
It's
bro.
cool, man. I
Not
asked a
at
simple
all.
question. I didn't even ask the question properly. What I wanted to ask you was if you were getting food delivered versus
Oh, food delivered.
someone
No.
at your house going to the grocery store. Because I know there are people that are getting their food delivered
Hmm.
exclusively.
Yeah, I no, we're not doing that. And for me, I think so it'll be interesting, right? Because now I think coronavirus is gonna probably accelerate a lot of things, a lot of trends that we were anticipating. So I'm sure that now food delivery, having people get groceries delivered to you will be more popular because A is less time consuming and you don't have to expose yourself. But I know that as school districts are trying to bridge the digital gap, students are getting devices, are getting access to the internet. So I think that in some ways that's the silver lining of the coronavirus. People are going to be there's some things that are hopefully going to be improved and looked at because that's just the way that people are going to want to prefer doing things moving forward.
For sure, for sure. Let's let's do a quick recap before we get into the main discussion. Let's just do a quick recap of what this today's topic is going to be,
Let's do
because
it.
as people can already sense, the only news these days is the coronavirus. But we also don't want to spend too much time just focus on the news that's coming regarding the virus. We'll spend like a few minutes just going over a quick recap of the numbers around the world, and then we just gonna spend some time just focused on a little bit of on a personal level, what are we doing to cope with it? Because we have seen in the past few weeks, you've heard stories about people either playing music from their balconies, or you mentioned this to me earlier, these Zoom parties that I wasn't really aware of. And now that I see this, it clicks because yesterday at my job, they invited us to a virtual party. And I was like, well, what
Mm,
is this? And so it must be that's what people are doing these days. So they're trying to do it at work also to just keep the spirits high and keep people motivated and so forth. And if we get some time, we'll talk a little bit about Mexico's response to it, because the president is being criticized for it, and then how it's affecting things at the U.S. Mexico border. But we're trying to keep it a little bit less news focused today, and more about our personal experiences. So we'll we'll if time permits, we can try to get to those other topics. What do you think?
sounds like a good plan to me.
Cool. So take a look at this map right here that I found. This is really cool, and of course, it's from Google, right?
On Google Maps has it.
Can't expect any less from these guys. If you just Google coronavirus, they put this on the front for you, and they have the
Wow.
counter for all the countries. You go to the full map, and it's quite cool because you could just hover over it, and it tells you all the cases. So now we know that the U.S. Sorry, this is Canada.
Hmm.
Canada has 364 cases per 1 million, 13,000 confirmed. If you look at the US, 300,000. And
Mm.
more than a third of those are in New York. There was, oh
Wow.
yeah, this is the other article that I wanted to mention was the ventilators. They're getting ventilators delivered from China now. The
Hmm.
Chinese, I think, 1,000 delivered to New York because they're in desperate need of them. If we go down to Mexico, so far it's only 1,600. So you would think that they're behind the curve a little bit because it's a big country. Mexico has over 100 million people. What's the population of Mexico?
115 billion. And I think, and it's interesting
Billion.
because well, 29.
129 million. I think you said billion. That would
I'm
be a
sorry,
lot of
million.
Mexicans. Too many for other people to handle.
They seem like a billion, but no,
That's
but I
racist.
think
No, I'm
it's
just kidding.
interesting that this hasn't spread that much in Mexico because I know that President AMLO has been kind of slow into implementing social distancing policies. So they even had like a huge, 100,000 people music festival. So it'll be interesting to see whether or not that those numbers spike up in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, yeah. We'll keep an eye on these numbers here. If we go down to Costa Rica, 416. That's to be expected. Panama has a lot more. What's the 396 per 1 million people versus 82? Wow, so it's a lot higher in Panama than in Costa Rica, which is
And I
crazy
feel like
because Costa
it could
Rica
add
has,
like a mortality rate in terms of,
yeah, well,
for each
that's
country.
41 versus, yeah. I'm curious. I don't know enough about Panama to have insight into what's going on there, but Costa Rica is a bigger tourist destination than Panama, isn't it? You would think that Costa Rica would have higher cases. Maybe the government response is a lot better in Costa Rica.
No, actually, what I think what may be because actually I traveled through Panama to go to Costa Rica, and I think that's it. Like I think there's a lot of people who have layovers
That's the
and
hub.
travel to Panama and then
Okay.
go somewhere else in Latin America. So I
Hmm.
think that you just have more people who can potentially be, uh, positive with the virus or be carrying it, and so they expose other travelers and people, and obviously the people of Panama.
Yeah, that that seems reasonable. That would be the reason why it's so high. The Colombia, 1,200. What's the population of Colombia, by the way? Wow.
50.
Seems like there's way more of you guys than 50 million.
Somos como 12 que dan por 100.
So 49 million in Colombia and 20 million in the US. Nah.
That's right.
So you guys have 1,200, yeah, 1,267. Only 25 deaths. That's good. That seems good. 55 recovered. We go down to Brazil. Brazil is high, 9,000. But they also have a
That's a
way.
lot of deaths too.
You have 209 million. The and Chile 4,161. So you get the gist of the cases. Nowhere near as close as the United States, even Brazil with just 9,000.
Hmm.
Their population is two-thirds of the population of the U.S. The U.S. has 300,000. At some point, you have to start wondering if they're reporting them accurately. Because
Yeah,
I
the
would,
testing,
yeah,
and I think obviously the healthcare systems in a lot of these countries are going to be very different than the U.S. or European countries too.
yeah. China se quedó en 81,000. If you believe what comes out of China, that they're recovering now, full recovery mode.
Oh, Iran, man.
Iran, yeah.
Oof.
Well, they were one of the first ones that were hit, and then they're at 55,000. But uh, still, if you start looking at some of these European countries like France, see, France overtook Iran at some point. So did Spain. Spain's 124,000. Considering the
Damn.
Spain is not. more than 1 million people, is it?
Population? Yeah,
Yeah,
it's pretty big.
46 million. No.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I asked. Sorry, more than 100 million. I was asking a million. Um, so that's where we are right now. We're in the middle of the lockdown. It's like we're like in a wait and see situation. We're hoping that Italy. It seems like we're getting some good news from Italy that it's plateaued, at least the number of people that are dying. So maybe they've already hit peak. We would
Hmm.
expect the other European countries to go through that in a week or two, and then the U.S. hopefully after that. But it's hard to say where we are, so we're just like in a wait and see. I think the only significant thing, at least for me, the news that I heard out of the last few days is that now they are going to actively encourage people to wear the masks
Yeah.
because you could give it to other people if either you if to protect yourself and to protect other people as well. And the other thing is the government did their measures last week. It's been over a week now, and we're just waiting and seeing how that's going to play out. And then you have the unemployment numbers coming in too, so that's going to be whatever new economic data we start getting in the next few weeks. That's going to have a big impact in terms of the reaction that we get because we're barely going to start seeing the full scale of people that are not working and how it's affecting other industries, right? When they start reporting these numbers, because they're usually
Yeah, I
delayed
think
by
yeah,
a while.
I think the initial report is about 6.6 million people who possibly 10 million people who are now on who are claiming unemployment here in the US. So that is pretty significant.
Yeah, I had to help out my babysitter's husband fill out his unemployment form because he was laid off.
Mm,
So that add one more to however many were filed last week. I was I was responsible for one of them.
wow.
Well, not me. I helped somebody else. Okay. Well, why don't you let's shift back to what you were talking about earlier, which is the the personal ways that you're coping with it, that we're dealing with it. You've we've heard. Did you hear about these guys from Spain? They uh, I wouldn't say they blew up because it's not like the whole world knows about them, but they're getting their 15 minutes of fame right now. They started making songs and posting them online. I heard about them on the news. That's how I know about them. The
Nice on
gringos
NPR.
NPR, yeah. I think we can play one of their songs. I don't think these guys have a huge contract with a music company that's going to deny us playing a few seconds of this. Yeah, I'll play it for
Hmm.
you.
Combination number 6. I just wanna see my friends. I wanna walk the streets again. But I gotta be patient. Let's enjoy this combination.
It's not bad, right?
Combination. Yeah, not bad at all. And they're Spanish, you said?
Yeah, de España.
De España. Joder, tío. Estoy flipando.
So what they're doing is they're doing a different musical genres. This one's bossa nova. They're doing reggae, Spanish rumba, Irish folk. This is only
Wow.
226.
Hasta trap. Mira, hacen trap.
Oh yeah, they're doing trap too.
Mira nomás, como el Bad Bunny.
You want me to look for the one that's trap? I can
Sí,
probably
para
find
ver qué
it.
tal. Porque va
Stay
a ser trap
Homas.
acústico.
That's pretty cool. Their
Stay
names.
Homas.
Yeah, Judith Netherman. Okay, so let me click on this to find out what's the band's name. Is it?
I think the Stay Homas,
Do you
no?
think it's Stay Homas? Okay, yeah, the group's called Stay Homas.
Stay
So
Homas.
let's go to YouTube. Trap, because I know that's your style right there. So we have to play this for you.
That's what the people want.
Confineo número 4. Señor Channel Beat. A toda la peña.
Drop that beat.
El COVID-19.
Oh shit.
De casa nadie se mueve.
Hey, hey.
Con el COVID-19. Si
Hey,
sale a la calle, tu abuela se muere. Y hasta aquí el COVID-19.
woo!
En casa nadie se muere.
I mean,
Candela.
sounds good to me. But you have more of a refined taste for trap music, if there is such a thing.
Yes, there is such a thing, buddy. No, I'm just kidding. No, they did a pretty good job. Obviously, it's they're musicians, so they were able to play really nicely, and it's great. I mean, it's pretty impressive that they can do not only trap, but the other songs that they were doing. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah. So these guys are doing their thing, trying to pass the time. What are you doing besides? So you have the grocery shopping. There's some people that don't even go to the grocery store these days. They get everything delivered. I have a friend in Australia, and he's getting everything delivered. He
Oh,
doesn't. They don't
nice.
even go to the grocery store. What
Yeah, so
about?
I think for
Yeah, go ahead.
I think for me, it's I'm still working, and since for work, we work with one of our constituency is one of the groups impacted by this whole COVID-19. So it's been really busy because we want to make sure that we're getting information and resources to folks impacted by this. So it's been busy, but what I've been trying to do, wake up in the morning and actually, I'm trying meditation, or
Hmm.
just waking up, and because usually when I wake up, I just put on NPR and get ready for my work day. But now I just kind of been using some time to be mindful and kind of get centered before I get going.
Yeah.
And then sometimes we during the day as I'm taking calls, I usually go outside to my backyard and kind of spend time out there, like picking up cleaning up, cutting, cutting the trimming the bushes and things like that. So like spending some time outside and getting some sun too, which helps. And then lastly, just trying to get either a walk in. Sometimes I get a walk in the morning, or a run in the afternoon. So just to stay physically active, and sometimes in those walks I go with my wife, so we get to just talk, connect, do a little bit of exercise. Bike riding too, that's an activity that I'm enjoying. And actually I was starting to sort of practice guitar again, and then I'm actually taking classes now, so that's been cool too, to try to continue to practice and improve that skill of playing guitar.
Nice. Maybe you can drop your first song on YouTube too once you're ready.
I know.
Trap.
Some trap con guitarra.
The only thing that we're doing consistently is going to the park.
Mm,
Yeah, they haven't closed them down. So yeah, that's the one thing. My routine sounds about the same. It hasn't changed much because I already work from home. The only thing that I can't go to the gym anymore. So usually in the mornings I'll try to get in a few things, some push-ups, some sit-ups, and I was doing them in my office here at home initially, but because I'm inside the house all day, and if you don't, sometimes if you're not aware of it, you could end up being inside all day.
yeah,
So especially with me in front of the computer most of the time, so I started making it a point also to go outside in the mornings. I wake up around 6. I've been waking up at 6:30, and I'll go out there and do about 30 minutes, put the news on, do the workout, and then after that, come on in and just do some tea, and then start doing some work.
nice.
But yeah, nothing major. I know that there's other people that it affects them at a whole different level. They're more impatient, they're more antsy. They can't just stay in one place. They need to be out, they need to do stuff. And I've never been that type of person. I'm more of a person that's comfortable being on my own, being alone, being inside. So, like I said, this has really, for me, it hasn't really affected me in any way. The only change for me is that my wife now, which works in the medical profession, she's working from home, and I have to
Mm.
share my office space with
Uh-oh.
her. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's funny because I think definitely people who are, the introverts versus extroverts are dealing with this very differently. And my wife, also works from home, but she's been doing the working from home for a while. So for her, it really hasn't changed. So she used to do, or she continues to do Zoom meetings and phone calls and things like that. But to your point, like think that's one of the reasons why these Zoom parties are and Zoom happy hours have emerged, because people kind of want to have that connection. But in some ways, I think those people, there's some people who are, I guess, still trying to cope with it, and I think obviously staying connected with friends helps out. But I know that I also seen people do flip cup tournaments on online, like Flip Cup, Zoom activities. So it's interesting that it also feels like now it's becoming the type of activity that people just want to go from one Zoom party to the other and just kind of stay connected. And the problem with that is that you're not really spending a lot of time to reflect or spend some time alone doing some other things, but also you just end up being in front of the screen for a lot longer, right? So like if you work the whole day and then you spend in time being connected on Zoom, then you just kind of spend most of your day in front of a screen.
Yeah, and I would say that right now the like you said, the introverts seem to have the upper hand in dealing with this. And
Hmm.
even I think about people like hermits, people that are even more extreme, that prefer more to be alone and live away from other people. Even those people are probably just handling it just fine. But yeah, the others, the ones that it's just a different personality type. I can't even try to classify how other people might be feeling. I do know that there's just people that don't enjoy staying indoors as much. They need to be doing things. They need to be talking, interacting. They need that social interaction a lot more than others.
Hmm.
And these by the way, these Zoom parties, the we'll just mention that this is so far what we've been saying is really how, for the most part, single or people with either just um, like my case, a toddler, people that don't have kids that are of school age, because parents that are dealing with having to have the kids at home, I've seen a few posts on Facebook, and though they're being driven crazy, they're going nuts
Yeah.
having to deal
Yeah.
with the kids.
Yeah, and I think I have a few friends who are really even asking their their other friends to see, oh, who can help us do activities for the kids, right? Because I think that's hopefully one of the things that people now appreciate, like the job of being a teacher, right? And to be able to teach and keep a group of kids entertained for almost the entire day. That's pretty hard. It takes skill, it takes dedication, it takes a lot of patience, and so I think people I'm sure are gonna lit after this, they're going to have a greater appreciation for the important role that teachers have in life. And I know a lot of school systems are still trying to provide online education, online learning, but obviously the parents are do need to step up in terms of having those activities and things that can keep their kids learning while they're at home. And I know here in California they canceled the remainder of the school year. So, well, at least through May, if I'm not mistaken. So,
Yeah, yeah, I heard that it's essentially going to be canceled for the remainder of the year. The one thing that I
yeah,
was thinking about as you were talking is the kids, right? So yeah, I have seen a lot of memes about that as well, about the how difficult it is to essentially babysit them, because that's what the teachers end up doing. The teachers, if you're a teacher that already has been doing it for a long time, then you already probably have a routine, and you're already pretty good at running a tight shift, if you will, so
yeah,
that you don't have kids acting out. Because you always in school, you remember in school, in high school, or junior high, you always knew the teachers that you could fool around with, and maybe not pay attention and talk, and even not listen to their instructions, because they didn't have a good handle on how to take care of kids. But there were others who we would literally go from one classroom to another, and we would be complete maniacs in one classroom, and then on the other one we would sit down and fold our hands, and we would not say a single word because we already knew that the kids are really good at knowing what teachers they're dealing with, and they know which teachers they can ignore, they can push, and they know which ones they not to mess with. And so yeah, it's really bad for some teachers. For some teachers, it's terrible. New teachers and teachers that have not figured out exactly how to manage a classroom with 10 to 20 or 30, however many kids are in the classroom. Yeah, it's tough for them. I'm glad parents. And the other thing for parents too is not only parents have to deal with their little monsters throughout the day, they also have to actively help them and engage them with their schoolwork, because usually what
Hmm.
happens in school is you would have the teacher they'll tell you to read a chapter, right? So go and read this chapter, and then or do give you a problem set in math, and then you would have time where you would try to do it on your own, and then you could go to the teacher and ask, or you could go to your classmates and ask for help if you didn't understand something.
Hmm.
And hopefully by the end of the day you would already understand, you would understand what it is that you need to do, and you could finish either the assignment that you had, or you could finish the homework. But now if you're at home and the teacher just gives you an instruction and you have to do even algebra, right? Even algebra from junior high, for some parents like in the immigrant community or even other well, I don't know, that maybe that's different, but yeah, actually in the immigrant community, how many parents, if your parents came from another country, how many of them are going to be able to help the kids with algebra? And the
Not
algebra,
that
it
many,
starts out simple.
and
It
even if
gets,
you knew it and took it back in school, I think you probably have to do a little bit of reviewing and relearning yourself, right? Because I
yeah.
think, I mean, I took it, but I would have to go back and have to, oh yeah, I remember this, I remember that, and there's some things that I probably forgot already.
Yeah, yeah. I was
So yeah,
starting. Yeah, sorry. I was starting with the extreme case of the people that absolutely would not know it, which are that's why I
yeah,
mentioned the inner community, because they didn't even go to school. But then you're right that people that took it, and if even let's just say that you just graduated high school, or even if you went to college but you didn't major in anything related to math and sciences, then chances are you would have forgotten a lot of the stuff, and you could review it, but chances are the way that algebra works is the first week or two is simple stuff, just like single variable algebra, find x.
yeah.
But then it starts getting a little bit more involved. And yeah, even people that took it before, they're gonna have to sit down and figure out how to do it just so that they can teach their kids. Otherwise, the kids are gonna suffer. Their grades will, at least.
Yeah, and it will be interesting to see because obviously this kind of puts, I mean, there's going to be a lot of people who are going to be held back in their academic careers, right? So people who not won't be able to graduate or who are going to have to wait to take a class a semester. So I think this is going to just have so many repercussions as it relates to education. And I wonder like what kind of because I think you learn other things. I think you learn other things from spending time with your family at home. So I'm sure that there will be some, I don't know if I want to say unintended consequences, but something that we don't anticipate, right? Because I think that it is a disruption in sort of the routine. So is there going to be a little bit more innovation? Are these kids going to be a little bit better to deal with uncertainty moving forward, or are they going to be, it will be interesting to see how this how people react and how this shapes people moving forward in society moving forward.
You think it's long enough of a time frame for those type of changes to manifest themselves?
I don't know. I think I know the usual timeline is like 2 weeks to for you to develop a new skill or and obviously that's if you're actively working on it. And I think the one estimate that I've heard is, well, I think here in well, I know across the US, I believe the country shut down through the end of this month of April, but I've heard that, even the middle of May may be a time frame where things may start sort of opening up again. But even then, I think it's long enough that that it could potentially have some impact. And I think some people who maybe perhaps didn't think about preparing for an earthquake or doing, because unfortunately that was one of the scary thoughts that I had the other day. I was like, what would happen if there was an earthquake right now? And that would be completely devastating, because obviously the healthcare system here in California, and particularly LA, they're sort of gearing up, preparing for this coronavirus. But if there's another mass casualty situation like that, then that would be complete chaos. So just sort of thinking about some of the scenarios that are more possible now, given what's happening.
If there's an earthquake right now, then it's almost guaranteed that the government has earthquake machines. Yeah, sorry, that's a reference to Alex Jones. I don't know if you remember that guy.
I
Alex
think I
Jones,
barely know him, but yeah, that's crazy.
the guy that got shut down from YouTube for all
Mm.
of the outrageous claims that he would make. He There was a bit that I saw it somewhere. It's not like I watched Alex Jones, but someone said that there was a bit that somebody shared where he's going ape shit about how the government has earthquake machines. They can trigger earthquakes. Oh, but yeah, I thought about that too about a few weeks ago. If just bad luck, if an earthquake were to hit, I don't think people are panicking as much now as they were 2 weeks ago. But
Hmm.
had it happened, or even if it happens right now, people will start freaking out as well. And yeah, you're right. There's opportunity. Earlier I asked you if I thought if you thought it was long enough for people to learn a new skill, considering that we're going to be on lockdown for just a few weeks, maybe a few months at most. But I was still focusing on the school kids because as we were talking about school, I
Hmm.
think you were talking more about parents now because I think for kids just being at home, it shouldn't be as big a difference. Only at least not the interaction that they have with their parents. It'll be different trying to learn and trying to do schoolwork from home. But the kids being at home and interacting with the parents, the kids are going to be kids. They're going to go crazy. They're going to play video games. They're going to watch TV, and then they'll see it as a free vacation, right? When they're not doing homework. But for the parents, yeah, for the parents, it's definitely like you said, it's a completely different experience. And the ones that are having to juggle schoolwork as well as their own jobs if they're working remotely, it's a
Yeah.
lot tough for them. And weren't you mentioning to me earlier how even some people were being critical of adults uh, that this should be a great opportunity for you to learn something new, and that if you don't, then somehow you are squandering an opportunity to do so.
Mm. Yeah, of course. I'm sure, like many of you out there, you are in text and group texts, or group text or Instagram lines where your friends keep sending you memes and posts that people put. But yeah, there was one post in particular, and it goes something like
You
this:
mean the
if you don't come out of this quarantine with, one, a new skill; two, your side hustle started; three, more knowledge, you never lack time, you lack discipline.
yeah, that's somebody getting up on what is it, on a pulpit, like on a stand, and casting judgment on everyone else, pointing the finger,
Yes.
right?
So obviously, into your point, and then this is a text chain with a number of other friends, and some of them are parents, and obviously they share how, for the most part, they're working, they're also taking care of their kids, so they're just exhausted. So it's not that they don't want to do those things, it's just that they don't have the energy and the capacity to do that at this time.
I mean, first of all, why? Yeah, I completely agree with you. The question that I'm asking myself is why would anyone take anything seriously that comes from one of those chain emails or chain group messages? I hate those. I never reply to those because this is so annoying. And you reply to them and you're broadcasting a message to like 10, 20, however many people are on that. And then when I get one of those, when I get added to one of those, I start getting a whole bunch of messages. I turned the data off on my phone because the way that those work is that they use the data, so that if you turn the data off, then you're not actually going to receive them. It's not like they're not like group messages are like the equivalent of multimedia messages. So just like
Hmm.
you wouldn't get a picture if your data's off, you won't get those messages. I just turn them off. And then at some point later on, I turn it back on, and then you just hear the flood of messages come in all at once.
Wow. Well, that's too bad because I was about to send you my email chain for the first el primer ramo de mañana del domingo de Ramos because I wanted you to get some good luck, bro.
What is it? Sorry, I completely clueless as to what is the Sunday. The
Well, this Sunday is el Domingo de Ramos.
what is it? Sorry, no
So
idea.
it's the
Sorry.
start. This is the start of the Holy Week.
Oh, see, so here's the thing, right? I need to explain because so I grew up in Mexico, small town, Catholic, super like by the book Catholic.
Palm
Well,
Sunday,
at
son.
least like Mexican Catholic. So anybody from that town would have known this reference because they would have all done all that stuff in addition to all of the Catholic stuff that has been intertwined with the native culture of Mexico. So you have the Dia de la Virgen and you have some Dia de los Muertos and all that stuff, right? So because Mexico is a unique blend of all that. So the problem is my mom converted to Christianity. And by the way, it's not a problem. It's just the reality of it is my mom converted to Christianity when I think was I already born? I must have been like one or two or maybe not even born yet. It just happened a long time ago. And so what happened was it's interesting because she converted to Christianity and she was immediately an outcast in that town.
Damn.
They would look at her differently. They would so anyway, maybe we can talk about that some other time. But she didn't raise us with any of this typical religious stuff, which I'm fine with it because I'm not religious at all. But I don't get the reference because I didn't grow up with this. My mom raised us through her Christian upbringing, so she raised us going to church every single day from 7 till 9, sometimes 9:30, and then Sunday school and then the singing and the yeah, all that, all the good stuff that comes with the Christian upbringing.
Hmm.
So I don't get the reference.
Interesting. Yeah, because I did. I mean, I grew up very Catholic. I was an altar boy. Almost. Well, I was technically a sacristan. So I remember on Sundays I used to go up in the morning, open the church, ring the bells, pack the bag to go to the bus terminal to do misa de capilla, and then come back, do like the big 12 o'clock mass on Sunday, and then go home, get some rest, and then come back in the evening to do the mass at 6 and the mass at 7.
Dang,
So
sounds
yeah,
worse than
so
me going to church every single day.
yes, and then I it was pretty much every single day too, and then I used to you know, and depending on what other altar boys were around. But yeah, and I mean, at that point, I was thinking about becoming a San Franciscan friar. But yeah, so it's like I remember the craziness of Palm Sunday. So it's like it's the start of the holiest week for Catholics, and so there's a big procession, and and also at that point all the rituals are out, right? So you do a saumerio, and the mass is longer, so there's just a lot more pomp and circumstance because it's sort of the Holy Week.
Sorry if what I'm about to say comes across insensitive
Ah,
because I know you have your religious background, but I just kept thinking, man, if I can see why you needed to be so involved with your religion, because if they're gonna try to instill that in you, it's a lot of work. It requires a lot
yeah.
of hours, so you have to be very active so that they're making sure that you follow the religious tenets or whatever laws and everything regarding your religion, and it's gonna take a long time for them to instill that in you.
Of course, and obviously, and in the church, whether it's Catholic or Christian or whatever other denomination, depends on their feligreses and people donating, people
Yeah,
volunteering.
tithing.
So,
Yeah.
all those things.
So the what was I gonna? I know we got a little bit off track with this. I wanted to go back to what you were saying with the chain group text that you received.
Hmm.
So because we didn't really get a chance to talk about that person. So yeah, makes total sense if you're single and you sit around and do nothing but waste your time watching Netflix or other stuff, and you right, you have to all the time in the world, and then you're just wasting it doing nothing. Yeah, so if you're in that situation and you can put this time to good use, then you should put it to good use and come out of it with something like a skill. But if, like you said, if you're a parent, a single parent, and you have kids and you have to work and take care of them and do all that stuff, dude, they're not gonna have any time because a lot of them
Yeah.
are like we mentioned earlier, a lot of them are even more overwhelmed having to do work and then having to do the schoolwork with the kids at home and babysitting too.
Yeah.
So
No,
talking
that's
from
true. And I
you
think well,
sorry, yeah,
there's
go ahead.
another thing too. Like I feel that A is also like a very like, and I think this is what the coronavirus is challenging right now. There's this whole thing about being productive, being efficient, doing things, and if you're not doing something, you're somehow wasting your time. So I think we've also lost the ability of just, just be like, what's wrong with just resting, spending some time outside and not doing anything, right? Just like, what's wrong with just having some rest, and not necessarily feeling that you have to be productive with every single hour in your day. And yes, I think that there's times when you need to do that, but I think there's also times when you need to be able to do some ocio, right? Because negocio is it comes from the Greek of ocio and negocio. So ocio being that time when you are having a good time disconnecting, and negocio is when you're working, doing business.
Hmm.
So I think there's also an importance of just being able to disconnect and do some self-care if you need to.
Yeah, you're what did you, I don't know if I'm reading the same stuff as you are. Is this something that you read? Somebody talking about this productivity? Did you read it in some of these articles that are being put out right now or other places?
I may have, but I just think that that's sort of that's one of the things that is challenging. And I think it also a reflection of what's happening right now with the economy, right? Because as we talked about in the last episode was about President Trump was so worried about getting the economy jump started again because obviously that has political implications. But I think also fundamentally right now it's this is a challenge to the way that we make money. So now you see, and I guess this maybe gets a little deeper, but now it's kind of like what was really valuable in our society, and who has value, and what's valuable, and there's people who are doing work that before wasn't seen as valuable, but now is essential. And then there's other people who are just you know staying home and collecting a check, and some of them are working, some of them are not necessarily just sitting around. But it's just um, this weird thing about like like if this back in the day, like let's say before, like I don't know, the time of the Aztecs or the Incas, right? Like they were just chilling, right? They were just not chilling. I mean, they did a lot of things, but it was just there was a different orientation for what life needed to be besides work and spending and going out, I feel. And I don't know if I'm making any sense, but just a lot of thoughts flying through
For
my head.
well, what I was thinking is when you said back in the days, man, you went really far back because I thought you were gonna say 1980s.
Well, yeah, yeah, in
Yeah.
the 1800s, right? Like people were just, yeah, I mean, they were still making it. And I think that's the other thing. I feel like both technology and globalization has like anything, right? It has had its good things and bad things. So one of the reasons why this pandemic came about was because of how easy it is to travel from continent to continent, right? Like, I forgot the number, but it was some crazy number of the amount of people who flew from Wuhan, China out.
Hmm.
I think it was like 20,000 people or something like that that went all over the world. So that's one of, and that was before, the alarms were sounded that this could potentially be something bad. And
Yeah.
at the same time, because of technology, because of telecommunications, now we can have Zoom parties and spend time together and able to work from home, and there's some things that can continue. So it's both the great things and the bad things that come with a more connected, more evolved society.
Yeah, and I think what you were getting at with when you were talking about the past generations from even 100 200 years ago is that you're saying they were getting by, and maybe if I understood what you were saying is that it wasn't as such as a big of a deal with them at some of the more modern problems that we have where we're trying to figure out how if we are wasting time, then we're feeling guilty that we're wasting it and we're not being productive. That there's this sense that we have to be doing something valuable with our time.
Hmm.
And I think in part it would be because 200 years ago you probably had to spend most of your energy and resources just trying to get food, or even three four
Hmm.
hundred years ago, right? The necessities of life, whatever work and labor was required to fulfill those necessities of life, it probably took a big chunk of your day. If you were just a regular person, not some king that was getting fed off of the work of slaves, right? And these days we have a lot of leisure time. Well, not everyone, but there's people that find themselves with a lot of downtime because they go to the grocery store and then they bring food in the refrigerator stocked, and they maybe not even cook. They just order the food, and so now there's so much convenience. I think we've talked about this before. So much convenience, but at some point, people start feeling like they need to be doing something with their time if they're not filling it with anything that seems productive.
Hmm.
Maybe that's what I was. At least that's what I got. Is that what you were? Is that what you were like alluding to?
Yeah, I think that's part of it too.
Oh, so that's not what you were saying. usually when
I don't
someone
know what
says,
I'm saying.
usually when someone says that's part of, yeah, that's part of what you were saying. That means that no, that's not what I was saying.
No, it is. I mean, and there is more leisure, and I think, and because there's no sports, right? There's no soccer, there's no football, there's no basketball. The activities that usually take their leisure time are gone. So I think it is a time where people have an option to, okay, do I, yes, I'll watch Netflix. Yes, I'll watch movies, but, do I pick up a book? Do I, start sewing? Do I start playing an instrument? Do I call my friends and relatives I haven't spoken to in a while? I think that there's more of an opportunity to do those things, and um, but I also think that as a society, an American society, there's also this drive to, okay, you need to be doing something productive, something that's either gonna make you a better person or is gonna make you more money.
And you think a person that would have spent a reasonable, let's say what's reasonable for a given week, you're a sports fan, on a given week, how many hours would you say you spend watching sports?
Hmm.
Soccer, basketball?
Yeah, at least, I mean, it was at least two. I mean, because soccer games are technically almost 2 hours, and
Uh huh.
sometimes I used to do at least one or two games a
And
weekend,
and it
if
also
not
depends
more.
on when sports seasons overlap. For example, basketball may overlap with
Yeah,
soccer, so you're watching more in those cases, right?
yeah, and then you have, and obviously, then and then each season kind of starts getting. There's kind of this rhythm, right? Like as one thing finishes, the other thing comes up, or there's a tournament, right? There was the big NCAA basketball tournament. So I'm not a big basketball fan, but I like seeing the tournament and knowing what's going on and
Mm-hmm.
being able to talk to my friends and others who are passionate about their university teams and obviously then there's Champions League, and then there's the things that like the Europe League, the Copa Libertadores. So there's always
Yeah,
something
there's.
going on around sports.
So the question that I wanted to ask you is then, do you think the people that need to find something to replace sports with, do you think they're the ones that are thinking I need to figure out what to do with my time, and it has to be something that's productive? Or do you think they're just looking for something to fill the time with? Because I don't consider watching sports very productive to begin with.
Yeah, it's true. So the answer is probably no. I think that they're probably trying to find something to
Like a distraction.
a distraction.
A
Yeah,
fun
and again, and
distraction.
and I don't wanna, because I love watching stuff, right? Like I love watching historical things, and even now we started watching the Cable Girls, which is a Spanish series, sort of done starting in the 1929 in Spain, so just before, before the crash of the market, before Franco comes in.
Hmm.
Obviously, there's a lot of, and it's well done, so it's interesting. But yeah, but I also feel that so that's why I also don't want to be judgmental, because I know the opium of TV. You can just watch something and just be there, and you, I mean, you get distracted. Maybe you learn a little something new, but have you been doing something productive? I don't know.
Yeah. And I don't want to be too critical of sports. I don't want to call them a complete waste of time. I do feel that there's a value in people in entertainment. There's value in people being able to just get away and watch something that's entertaining. And right. But then again, it's something that there has to be a balance between doing that and then watching 10 5 10 hours of sports a week or even more.
Hmm.
So for the most part, I do watch sports, but not, I don't think as much as other people do. So yeah, anyway, I was just thinking about how that's interesting. If people are replacing what they were already doing with stuff that's productive, my guess is they're probably just looking for ways to get distracted, because there might be people that need the distractions. Like
Yeah.
me personally, like I said, I'm more of the type that I'm okay just with being with myself, being with my thoughts. And the one thing that I have started doing a little bit more of, uh, and it's not because of the coronavirus. I was already starting down this path before. Remember, I told you that I was starting to buy corn from a company in Oregon, and they
Oh
actually
yeah.
have organic corn. And it's been a process because I like, first of all, I hate tortillas from the store. They're garbage, dude. And I don't mean any offense to anyone that eats tortillas, but if you grew up in Mexico like I did, and you were eating tortillas that were fresh from the comal where your grandma was making them, then you know what a tortilla tastes like. And a tortilla from Guerrero is not that. I don't even know what that is, to be honest. And so I just went on this mission where I wanted to start making my own tortillas, and especially to use organic corn. And so I found the company in Oregon that delivers, and then I went and picked up the corn and I brought it home. But then the problem is, if the process of making tortillas is actually really difficult, because you have to grind the corn. First of all, you have to boil it in lime powder, which in Mexico they call it cal. And you have to boil it so that, because otherwise, if you eat the corn that way, it's toxic for you. So the lime, when it interacts with the corn, I forget what the actual chemical process that it goes. It's called nixtamal. When you're making nixtamal, so the tortilla is made from nixtamal, not from corn, which is the corn treated with the lime powder.
Okay.
So you have to do that, and then you have to grind it, and the grinding part is really hard. If you go back to how the indigenous cultures people used to do it, they used to essentially, that's where the molcajete comes from. Where now we use them for guacamole,
Hmm.
but they used to have big ones, and that's where they used to grind the corn until it turned into a masa. So the next, after I got the corn, the next step was, okay, how do I grind this thing to make the masa? And then I started looking online, and I couldn't find anything. There's really nothing, no way to grind it. The only thing that I found was, there's um there's this company in Mexico that ships, that they make and they sell, and they'll ship it to you. and it's a molino. It's a small molino, which is essentially the cornmeal grinder.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I found the same one here in downtown LA, but they want, how much was it? It's like $450 for it. And I suppose I would buy it, but see what ended up happening is I had already bought I went with the first choice, which wasn't the best because this is me being naive and not knowing anything about this process. I went with the Kitchen Aid because they have an attachment to it
Mm-hmm.
that is a cornmeal grinder, but I didn't know that you can only use it for dry seeds. And
Mm-hmm.
obviously the corn, if you're gonna grind it, it's still gonna be really moist because you boil it and then you have to grind it. So you can use it for that. The cornmeal grinder from KitchenAid can't be used to make nixtamal. It gets clogged up. It literally
Mm-hmm.
clogs up and then it stops. Nothing comes out. So I didn't know that. So I bought the damn thing first, and I paid that the KitchenAid the device, it costs like 250 or close to 300 also, and then the attachment costs another $100. So that's $400 that I spent on that thing to turn out that it doesn't even I can't even do what I wanted to with it, and I couldn't return it because by the time I got around to trying it, it had already been like a few months. So
That
I
sucks.
didn't want to dish out another 350 to buy the actual molino to grind it. So what I did is I took apart the attachment that comes with the KitchenAid. I took it apart and I started like messing with it, and I actually got it to work by
Wow.
altering it a little bit. So I'm able to make my masa now, and making tortillas. And this morning, actually, I was making my third or fourth batch of tortillas. It helps that I have my aunt here. She is our babysitter, so I helps that I have her here, and she's been able to guide me through the whole process because she grew up in Mexico and she used to make them by hand. So it's good to
Sounds
have
like
that.
you're gonna survive this quarantine with warm, fresh tortillas.